Guys.
Hello.
Hello. Today I have a guest, Kunal Rakshit. So tell us a bit about yourself. What did you do this morning? That's what I wanted to ask you. Yes.
Okay, I woke up this morning a little late than usual. I woke up at like 7:30. Then I cleaned my floor as usual every day. That's my morning ritual. Whenever I wake up, I clean my floor and mop it,
Yes.
and then I see my emails. What are the things? I guess that's not a very good idea to check the mails in the morning, but I got habituated to it. So received what are the notification and things, and then I gradually settle down, have a bowl of oats, and open up my computer and gradually settle down to everyday's task. But this morning I was reading a book on Gandhi,
Gandhi. Yeah.
autobiography of Gandhi, because
Oh, I read that book. It's 600 pages.
Yes.
On Truth.
experiments on truth.
Wow, you're reading that book.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. uh, and yeah, it gives a, because today is a holiday, I had the pleasure of reading. Not every day I have this leisure, but it's such a humble reading that I always feel humbled every time I go through Gandhi's writing or writings on Gandhi.
Absolutely. He's a remarkable man.
Abs-
Because what fascinates me with Gandhi is that he strived for this inner peace while at the same time
Mm.
fighting for political freedom, for people's freedom.
Absolutely, and what motivates me is his simplicity. That though he was very highly educated, he has a wide mass following and wide
A
appeal.
barrister. He
A
was
barrister,
yeah.
and he studied in London, and then he went to South Africa to work.
Yes.
And there he gradually built his appeal without any violence. Like what was very prominent that time was people killing each other, like,
You're right.
and that non-violence is actually catapulted him in the global stage.
You're right. He inspired an entire generation of non-violent
Activities.
activists. Like Martin Luther King was
Absolutely.
inspired by Gandhi,
Exactly.
and countless people to come.
Exactly, and not only, yeah, exactly, not only generations, but for the generations to come, we still are in awe that if you, how can a man like Gandhi traded on earth?
Yes, how did they even exist?
How did he
Yeah.
even exist? He renounced his daily possessions. When he passed away, he had two things, or three things: a glass, uh, one pair of clothes, that's very simple white robe, and a watch.
Yeah, he had a watch.
And
huh?
I remember a stick which he made
Yes,
himself, a stick,
a stick.
and a wooden sandal to walk. That's his all possession.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I feel always humbled whenever I look at Gandhi, but yeah, he knew everyone. He had the highest level of contacts, but he never like used it for personal gains, like as leaders do these days.
That's right. He was very awakened as a leader.
Right.
It's rare. It's incredibly rare. No, you're right. Now that when you put it that way, it's incredibly rare to find a man like him.
Absolutely. And never ever he held any public office. That's another thing.
That's right, because there were Nehru and all those people.
Right. But he never aspired to be like institutionalized, if we say, like he never like took a office of like prime minister or anything. And I also feel he has a wider appeal than we ever realize. Even now, his ideologies resonates. His ideology to work with the hand, to have the give the credibility to the manual labor, to understand our root, how we come, where we belong. That's very, very resonate. still today.
Yes. Wonderful.
Another thing that is probably like sometimes I get fascinated, but it's not important. But that he never cared for any recognition, not that he needed any. Uh, he never won a Nobel Peace Prize, though he was nominated 5 times, but the Nobel Committee never
Never gave it to him.
gave it to him. Yeah. That's that's the thing that they say, that sometimes they reflect that it has been our biggest mistake that we didn't give it to Gandhi, but I don't think it's necessary.
It's not important
It's
because
not important.
Gandhi is not seeking prizes.
Exactly.
Gandhi is seeking freedom, not just for himself, but for everyone.
And also how to be self-reliant, how to
Yes.
how to wash your clothes, how to do your dishes,
And cut
how
your
to
own hair.
cut your own hair. Be completely self-reliant. Understand that what makes your existence, how you can do all your things yourself. It's not very good. Like that time when he was speaking, a lot of people felt disconnected because they had like scores of servants below them to serve their needs. So upper level of people, they didn't feel that Gandhi's speakings are good for them. But gradually it seeped in. It's people got more aware of his ideology because he led through it. He himself preached. He himself practiced what he
He
preached.
practiced what he preached, yeah.
He himself practiced. That's what. Whenever he went to Britain, he went with a loincloth, just a robe, white robe, to meet Churchill. Winston Churchill said he's a half-naked Saturn. Yeah. But yeah, meeting dignitaries, but he never like really gave up what he felt or what he believed. That kind of determination and belief is very rare.
Absolutely. And I'm glad people like him have come and gone to inspire the rest of us.
Right. And more of Gandhi's life we know through his writings, his letters, which sometimes can be very controversial because there are like scores, and every day probably he'll write, like, because that was the only means of communication, writing letters or telegram.
Yes.
So as we read his biography or autobiography, in autobiography he doesn't mention his letters, of course, but in his biographies people find traces of the communication with his sons, which may not be very pleasant all the time because it reveals other side which is hidden from the public views all the time, because his relationship with his sons were not very pleasant sometimes because they couldn't live it up to the dad's expectation, and those kind of fragility like builds up
Okay.
in experiences in his personal life. That is now revealed. He believed in celibacy, like not having any sexual encounters unless you want it for procreation or the child, which is like very controversial topics which are discussed in those letters.
So, is he putting the expectation of celibacy on his sons?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So that's
And
why.
that really pissed him off because they
Yeah.
obviously want to have sex.
Yeah.
Huh. But yeah, he did burden his family
To follow his path.
to follow his path. He forced them to follow his path rather than letting them be.
Which is very high standards of expectation.
Yes, because his own standards of expectations are very high.
And his wife blindly followed him wherever
Her
went.
whole life, man. She served him his whole life. She was, I think, 13 years old, and he was 15 years old
When they
married. They were
Exactly.
teenagers.
Teenagers.
According to today's, back then it was normal in Indian culture, right? There's, especially when you were a wealthier son, like, because Gandhi came from a wealthier family.
Right,
He
that's
was-
why he was able to afford an education in London.
Exactly. How else would you go to London and study as a
Yeah.
barrister? And he even picked that particular university because it was the most expensive one.
Mm.
The tuition was the most expensive.
Even
It was
if
like
you-
140 pounds. But back then it was like 18 the end of the 19th century.
end of the 19th century.
Yeah, so he had a lot of privilege in that way. It's kind of similarly to Buddha, where he was born into privilege and he chose to renounce his privilege and be
With the mass.
with the mass. Exactly. But you're right. There are still shortcomings in his personality, but we can't expect people to be perfect.
Exactly.
You know, a lot of people want to hate Gandhi because of his shortcomings.
Yeah, ultimately he was killed. Right?
He was killed at 79 years
Yeah.
old. He was shot. Bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
And his death stopped the violence. That was his final act, was to die. And a day before he died, he said, "I'm gonna be killed at the hands of an assassin." He knew his time was coming. And his death saved countless lives, because during a separation where all the Pakistanis and the Indians and the Bangladesh had to like move to their respective
Yeah.
countries, 2 million people killed each other.
There were huge riots. Bangladesh was not reality that time. It was East Pakistan and West Pakistan. But there was huge riots between Hindus and Muslims. And Gandhi wagered his life. He said, if you have to fight over my dead body. He went there to stop the riot. And then people submitted their weapons under his feet because they said, this great monk has come to stop our killings. What we can do. And
That's
they
so beautiful.
and they offered their weapons under his feet in Calcutta, which is like millions of people were killing each other. A terrible thing we still can't believe.
And then when he died, it stopped.
And another important thing is that Gandhi didn't wanted India's independence that time because
That's right. He wanted to be
wait.
one whole country.
Yeah,
But Britain wanted to cause a mess in leaving. So
Yeah.
you want your freedom? Here's
and
your
also
freedom.
the Congress Party, which is the dominant party in India,
Wanted
they
it
want
as well.
because
Nehru.
the other Nehru and other Indian leaders, they wanted it because they knew that they had to be prime minister and they had their own ambition
You're right. They put their ambition
before the country.
before the greater. Gandhi saw this greater vision.
Yeah, he never wanted this violence, this massacre, this migration to happen. He wanted a unified country.
But the reality is, in his later years, he was losing power. All the power was passing to Nehru. And who was the Muslim leader?
Jinnah.
Jinnah and Nehru. They
The-
were gaining
Exactly.
the power,
Exactly.
and they wanted to split.
Right.
And it's just very hard to do this. It's very hard to get people to come together and no longer discriminate their differences.
And it's very poignant because I'll bring up this point. This Jinnah and Gandhi, they're exactly born from the same region around the same time, I believe.
Right.
But they had the same education. They're both barristers. They spoke the same language. They had the same
Really?
cultural background. And how different in their ambitions they are.
Yeah.
Jinnah followed his personal ambition to create a nation based on a religious majority. And he really both had their backgrounds, but how they culminated, it's worthwhile to look at. He's still he's also called father of Pakistan. But in Pakistan, he's widely celebrated, like as Gandhi is in India. So
They each had their role to play.
yeah,
They did well.
they did well.
So, how, looking at the current state of India, 2020, how do you feel things have happened? Because they got their independence
Right.
and they developed very quickly.
I feel yes, India has now sent uh, space landing mission. They have their own space institute, ISRO, and they're trying to conquer Mars probably next couple of years. Send a mission to Mars. But what I feel is India's interesting aspect is its duality, which I feel is very special. That India lives in towns as well as countries. The soul of India, when Gandhi was alive, like 70% of India lived in rural areas. Now it is reversed. It's like mass migration happening from country to the town. India is growing economically, but I don't know if the freedom that Gandhi wanted to have, whether he had it, because it's a independent country. Yes, it's ruled by a democratically elected leader, but also now I think Gandhi's message is more relevant than ever because still now the riots happen, still now people
People
kill
are
each
still
other.
discriminating towards their differences.
Exactly, and the caste system, which is one of the worst kind of thing that will happen,
It's
is still there in some parts of India, and people still kill each other based on the inter-caste marriage, which I don't know whether after 70 years of freedom, whether it should be there. There are some good things happen, but some bad things they still remain, which probably I don't know if we'll ever get rid of them. It's very complicated situation. India has grown exponentially in population.
I see. So India has really grown economically, worldly,
Yeah.
but um, spiritually, people are still stuck in their egos of
Exactly.
of positions and thoughts about themselves and thoughts about judgments about other people. I think that this is gonna occur on a much longer time scale because a person like Gandhi can see the truth within his lifetime, but for an entire people of over 1 billion people to change, it's gonna take much longer, more than decades. You know, because it's like overcoming
personal ambition and
Personal ambition,
to work for
attachments.
the society.
Yes.
There are Gandhian fellows, there are Gandhian villages, Gandhian societies, but I don't know whether his relevance is. I mean, his people are following his path. He appears in the notes. He's called Father of the Nation. He's remembered in very the special days, his birthday, his passing day. But what really is like his aspects of non-violence, his aspects of coordination, moving together, the whole mass. I don't think we have it or will ever achieve it. It's very difficult thing to do.
People are very obedient today, especially. I feel.
Also, the kind of leaders we have is questionable. I mean, in morality, in their intentionality, if they are working for a secular, I don't think the government we have now is a secular one, which is they're based on a religious faith. Their root is in religious faith. So from that onset, probably Gandhi wouldn't be very happy if he's alive. But also on his in his party Congress, which is also not haven't done very good when they were in power. There were massive corruption. There was massive nepotism. The Gandhi family, which ruled India, they had like a dynasty. That they have no blood relation with Mahatma Gandhi, by the way, but another separate Gandhi family. But it's I don't know whether that's a good way or bad way, but definitely it's not Gandhi's vision that I can say.
Yes. But at least he imparted the vision of non-violent resistance.
Exactly.
Because what he realized is that every time you throw violence, violence is returned to you.
Right.
So, by being non-violent, even if they throw violence at you, you're not throwing it back.
Right.
So
Which has
that
been-
stops the cycle of violence,
Exactly.
which comes back to what Jesus Christ says.
But it has its own amplifications. I mean, own ramifications because countless lives were lost. Okay, because when
Absolutely.
when this kind of mass protest happened, and sometimes when people just shown resistance, Gandhi stopped the movement. Gandhi said, "No, this is not my path." Even though like billion people are motivated,
To move.
and if there's like 4 people deviated, he stopped the movement. It happened, and then the whole country was like so surprised that because they're working towards a common goal, and just 4 people showed reverse violence. And then he said, "No, this is not. It can be done. It has to be. When everyone is ready, we'll achieve it." These kind of things are very utopian in some ways, I feel like.
Yes.
As you said, as Jesus, the whole world followed Jesus. Christianity became widely popular. It's still the most dominant religion, but
I meant it as love your enemies.
Yeah.
Kind of
okay,
situation.
yeah. Bring when you are slapped in one
Turn
face,
the other cheek.
Yeah.
Exactly.
yeah, bring out the other cheek.
Cool. I'm really glad I asked about your morning. Now we got to talk about Gandhi. That's
Gandhi.
wonderful.
Yeah, I never gave a thought that we're gonna discuss Gandhi. It was just a very random
Yes.
thing that happened.
So you've been away from India for some time.
Mhm.
How do you feel being away from India?
It gives me the privilege of seeing India from outside, how other people think about India, or how other people, non-Indians, how they live, how they believe, what is their daily lifestyle, which is very different. I get to see and
You
compare.
mean the Indians living here?
Also, non-Indians living here.
Okay.
So
you really like being exposed to different cultures.
Right.
Is that what motivated you to come here in the first place?
I didn't really think
Yeah,
of
what
it.
made you come here to this city of Montreal?
Okay, so that's because a part is like my education. I mostly wanted to study under a particular professor in McGill, so that's why I moved here. But I didn't see it like the cultural exchange was an added bonus to it. It was not my main motivation, but now I see it. I feel it has it kind of opened up my thinking avenues. Probably in India, I wouldn't have thought this way.
Absolutely.
It gave me a tool to diversify my views, thinking, thoughts.
I agree. Meeting people from different cultures with different beliefs, different values, it changes you. It's like feels like every person that you meet changes you.
Yeah, it's
in their own way.
Exactly. Again, coming
And
back.
some of it changes you in a good way, some of it changes you in a bad way. At the end of the day, it depends how you're gonna react to that influence, right?
Coming back to Gandhi, Gandhi said that open up your windows, but make sure your foundation is strong.
I like that. Yeah.
Open up the windows so that the wind can come in, right? And have different winds. They pass through your window, your house.
Well, that's why we're on this balcony.
Yeah.
So we can appreciate the wind. It's so beautiful.
It's wonderful, so fresh. And we have a cloudy day, but the cloud is so beautiful with the blue sky.
Absolutely. And I love how the video is overexposed white back. But this is beautiful too. Look at our faces. Look at this
Yes.
lighting.
Yeah.
This is it. Sometimes you just gotta go for it. You know, when I was at architecture school, I tried to make things too perfect. I wanted to be a very. You know what? I just should have let go and done things in a rougher way. And this way, I would have grown faster. But it's like some insights come to us at different periods of our time. I realize we're each growing at our own pace.
Absolutely, everyone has that. It's like everyone of like a tree. We have our own
Yes.
different
And we're
growth rate.
choosing which direction to push our branches and our roots in. Sometimes we want to push this way, this way. Okay, you know what? I want to push this branch now. I want to push this root.
We have different realizations at different parts of our life, which is based on that circumstances, context. But it's very true.
And it's, Gandhi had some big realizations within himself, but now we can't expect the whole of India to have that same realizations
Yeah.
of truth,
Yeah.
experiments with truth. My life is my message. I think that's my favorite quote from Gandhi.
Yeah. Yeah.
He lives it.
Yes, he lived it. He proved it that life can be led in this way.
And that's why I've been speaking a lot less. I've been focused more on actions because I feel in my younger years I would talk too much and not act enough. And the minute you've talked, you've already set up expectations. You know, my mind was in the future, but now I'm more focused on the present moment, and I realize with that alone I become more silent and I just stay focused
Right.
on the action.
Right.
And this puts us at peace, you know, because I guess what I I guess what I want is like peace from my mind.
Yeah, if you
Endless thinking.
if you continuously think of future, when future is gonna come, it will never come. You will
Always
pass
be in
your
the future.
present. Yeah.
Your mind will be focused on the future.
Future. Yeah.
It's so simple, but we miss the present moment. It's one thought away.
Right.
We're always one thought away from this present moment, and this presence makes you aware of the truth. You can't commit violence, you can't commit murder when you're present.
Right.
When you're feeling this oneness with all other beings, which comes naturally when your mind is empty, when you're emptying yourself. So I feel very grateful in that sense. It's like where I'm learning to empty myself, because our whole lives we were educated on how to think.
Right.
How to think. Thinking was put on a pedestal in these prestigious academic institutions.
Right.
And what I realized through psychedelics was that my suffering was coming from thinking, because I could see just how disidentifying from thinking would immediately put me at peace. And people like Gandhi have had such profound experiences like this, very profound inner spiritual experiences which then guided their actions for the rest of their lives. And there's a part of them that's also in a way embracing their anger, because when I think about it, Gandhi is an angry person, but he's watching that anger and turning it towards action,
Yeah.
you know.
In a much peaceful way, in a like non-violent, but through action, as you said.
That's right, because anger is gonna come and go. Even the
You
Buddha
might-
is
you
gets
might-
angry.
Exactly.
You
You
know?
might commit something at the heights of your anger, and then you will forever repent in your life. There's no point doing that mistake. There is.
But again, coming to the present moment, when you're in the
Okay.
present moment, you stop clinging to the anger, because it's gonna pass like these clouds. You see these clouds, they just keep
Yeah.
passing. Openings are created where the sun comes in, blocked, unblocked, blocked, blocked.
That's a very profound metaphor
Absolutely.
for our life.
This is a lot from Eastern spirituality, this cloud metaphor. Like, treat the voice in your head, treat your thoughts and your feelings like these clouds. Let them pass. They're gonna pass. But you see, what we do is we cling to clouds. You see, that cloud has already passed all the way there. In
Yeah.
a sense, it's like that could be the future, and that's the past. So we keep our focus on everything except this moment.
And that's how we kind of deny the present, which is
We
very
deny the
problematic.
present.
Yeah, and we never live the present, and we never be happy.
Yes, and that's why I'm being as present as I can, so that the people I meet are present, and that's why I want you to meet Soham today, because he's the most present person I know in Montreal. I was looking for him. I was looking for a spiritual teacher in Montreal,
Wow.
and I was eating with my friend at Lola Rosa, talking about presence, and sitting under the Buddha head was Soham and his wife, and he was so intrigued, excited about us talking about being present, that he came to our table and just started talking to us, and that's where we became friends. And now we're gonna get to
I had the great pleasure of meeting Soham through you.
Absolutely.
And it was such a chance encounters, and I believe that chance encounters changes lives. That is such a chance encounter with Soham at Lola Rosa. If you didn't happen to meet him, I wouldn't have met Soham. And such an enlightened personality.
Yes, you can feel his energy.
Yeah.
It's this very calm energy.
It's like that halo he has within
Empty.
him. Yeah.
He's empty because every time he gets distracted, he brings his focus back to the present moment.
Hmm.
And so that is what I'm truly working or practicing now, because we can achieve the world's greatest power,
Hmm.
the power of a man like Nehru or Jinnah
Yeah.
or any very powerful political leader who's beloved, famous, has control over hundreds of millions of people. But if you don't feel this peace within yourself,
Then what it is
then
for?
what's it for? You're still sleepless at night thinking about this, thinking about that. You're still caught up by every thought and emotion floating by
Like clouds.
like clouds. You're not. So it's like, I feel that's been one of the biggest transformations of my life, was to change my focus. Was to change my focus from the outside to the inside. But now I'm learning to really do both.
Hmm.
So I feel like these last 5 years since I graduated from McGill School of Architecture, since I had my first psychedelic trip, and having this very profound inner experience of stillness, is has been to come back into myself. But it's challenging because I keep getting distracted by the outside world. But now it's like I'm learning to maintain this inner presence, inner stillness, while observing and accepting this outside world, and accepting people. Like, we're so judgmental.
Hmm.
Gandhi's vision is possible only as long as people don't judge each other.
Hmm.
As long as you judge each other, you discriminate the differences. You separate the differences. You become separate
Yeah.
nations, separate people, separate castes. That's why Gandhi's vision was not possible in 1948. Because everyone has to feel this this oneness, in a sense, that comes from emptiness. Really,
Right.
it's not rationally understood. It's through direct experience.
It's exact this duality of inside and outside.
Inside, outside, yes.
Exactly. When man truly understands that how to balance and how to balance everything, then he is master.
Absolutely.
He's enlightened.
You see the eagles?
Right.
They're beautiful, these eagles. They just spend hours a day soaring, not worrying about past or future, just turning around. There's so much air flowing that they just open their wings and the wind guides them.
And they just know day-to-day existence. They just know they have to eat today to live, and then they will think about tomorrow, not today.
Exactly. Just like tubs.
Nietzsche said that people has to live unhistorically. History is sometimes a burden, that sometimes it's too much of thinking, too much of information that you always carry with it. When you live without your memories, sometimes you live truly with you. People who are so memorious, some people like in the world are like so memorious they can recall every moments of the day, 3 or 4, but that kind of stops them from making any decision.
Yes.
Because they can remember every adverse action of their task, what they have done in the past,
and they cling to them.
Their
focus stays on
to it, so they don't live in the present.
That's right.
They live in the past all the time. But this balance of forgetting and remembering, that's truly unique. I mean, that's why we are gifted with this capacity to forget some incidents in the past so that we can focus on the present. If we just remembered everything, what a tragedy it would be.
Absolutely.
And also sometimes I feel looking in the future with every passing moment as we are progressing towards our death, and if we pause a moment to think, then we realize that, okay, if there is no tomorrow, today is your last day, how would you live your life?
Yes.
Would you be happy dying whatever you are doing every day if today is your last day of your life? How would you live? That bell of the church kind of reminds me of the mortality all the time.
I like that.
It's that thinking that, okay, time is passing by.
I see. It's a reminder of the passage of time.
Exactly.
And that reminds you of death.
Yeah.
Interesting. I like it. Dude, now that you've said this, every time I hear this bell, I'm gonna be reminded of death, which is good because then it reminds me of aliveness.
Right.
Death, it's like going to a funeral and being grateful that you're alive right now.
Exactly. And
but this is like a practice.
Practice every day, reminded that of your limited time in this world.
And what are you doing with your time?
Right.
Are you doing things that you enjoy? Are you spending time with people that you enjoy being with?
Right. Are you living the life as your last day? If you're speaking to your near ones and dear ones, did you speak to them properly? If this is the last call, would you repent that how you spoke, how you behaved?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
If we lived each day as our last, wow.
It's that mirror that in front of you. This is the last day. This is the last day. I know it's kind of tough, but it's very true. I just want to mention, since we're discussing this, very recently I watched a Swedish movie from 1960s by Ingmar Bergman, who is a noted filmmaker. There was one movie called Seven Seal, the movie where a knight, and from the middle-aged, he meets death, and the death says, "I have come to take your life," and the knight says, do you play chess? Death says, why? He says, I just need to correct few things in my life when we play chess, and then I can come back to you. Whoever wins the game, he decides. If the knight wins the game, he gets to live a little bit long. If the death wins, then
he
the
dies
knight,
right away.
He dies right away. But in between the chess moves, when death is thinking, the knight is going back to his daily lives and having some dialogues where he's realizing, what if it is his last dialogue?
Wow.
It's very profound realization that when death is knocking at your door, only then you probably realize that everyone probably realize that, oh, this is my last few moments in life, whether I have acted properly, behaved properly. This realization. Not everybody gets to play chess with death and gain some time.
That's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that story.
It's a very good one. Very profound.
Wow, 40 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's end it on
Sure.
remembering death.
Remember-
Memento mori.
Memento mori.
Latin for remember death,
Death.
so that we may be alive today. We can return our focus to this moment and not our endless worries, our
Right.
endless thoughts. Just let the clouds pass. Watch the clouds. Watch the clouds. That's it.
Let's be at peace with ourselves and not think too much about pleasing everyone or carrying everyone else's expectations.
That's right. It was a pleasure having you.
It was a
Kunal.
pleasure talking to you and discussing such very insightful things in life. It was always a pleasure.
Absolutely. And
Thank
now
you.
I'll hear the bell every time because of you. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.